A school shooting in Texas involving young children has reignited the national US debate about access to firearms. What does the data tell us about gun culture and its impact? Hi, I'm Gabriel Saldaña, and in this video we will discover why the guns culture in America is so dangerous, and how we can help to change this in not too distant future. To give you some context, the US ratio of firearms per 100 residents is 120.5, up from 88 per 100 in 2011, far surpasses that of other countries around the world. This issue is a highly political one. Pitting gun control advocates against sectors of the population fiercely protective of their right to bear arms. The Second Amendment of the US Constitution gives Americans the right to bear arms, and about a third of US adults say they personally own a gun. At the same time, President Joe Biden and other policymakers earlier this year proposed new restrictions on firearms access in an effort to address gun violence, ranging from rising murder rates in some major cities to mass shootings. Despite the surge in mass shootings across the US, the politics of gun control has been the same for years. Joe Biden led a push for universal background checks, a new assault weapon ban, and a prohibition on high-capacity gun clips that went nowhere. Now, his presidential administration faces even tougher odds for narrower policies. More recent data also suggests that gun ownership grew significantly over the last several years. One study published by the Annals of Internal Medicine in February found that 7.5 million US adults, just under the 3% of the population, became first new gun owners between January 2019 and April 2021. There is no fully established beginning, but it is known that American attitudes on gun ownership date back to the American Revolutionary War, and also arise from traditions of hunting, militias, and frontier living. The American hunting sporting passion comes from a time when the United States was an agrarian subsistence nation, where hunting was a profession for some, an auxiliary source of food for some settlers, and also a deterrent for animal predators. A connection between shooting skills and survival among rural American men was in many cases a necessity and a rite of passage for those entering manhood. Today, hunting survives as a central sentimental component of a gun culture as a way to control animal population across the country, regardless of modern threats away from subsistence, hunting, and rural living. There are many non-governmental organizations, foundations, and agencies that are against the misuse of guns in the United States and fight every day to stop the use of firearms in the country. One of these is the Ohio Coalition Against Gun Violence. This is a non-profit organization working to prevent gun violence through education, advocacy, and public awareness. The OCAGV is the state's recognized resource on current information regarding gun violence and gun-related legislation. They monitor current development at the national and state levels and provide statewide education on nonviolence and safety for children and families. Also, work with other organizations and individuals to facilitate community solutions, and they support the public health recognition of the gun violence problem. There are other associations like Everytown for Gun Safety, the Brady Campaign, Newton Action Alliance, Gun Control Giving Fund, and too many others. In addition to the problem of too many guns in US homes as we speak before, there are also the country's murder and suicide charts. According to the US Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, a total of 45,000 people died from gun-related injuries of all causes during 2020, the last year for which complete data is available. And while mass shooting and gun murder generally garner more media attention of the total, 54th, about 24,000 deaths were suicides. A 2016 study published in the American Journal of Public Health found there was a strong relationship between higher levels of gun ownership in the state and higher firearm suicides rates for both men and women. Advocates for stricter gun laws in the United States often cite this static when punishing lawmakers to devote more resources to mental health and fewer to easing gun restrictions. As we have seen, the gun culture in the US is a severe problem that affects millions of innocent people. In my attempt to make this world a more peaceful place, I came up with a plan to stop this problem, or at least to slow it down. My plan is to educate the population about the use of guns. Since we are hardly going to be able to stop the sale of guns to people over 18, we can teach them to use it with caution, to respect them, to be careful with them, to make psychological profiling to see if they are fit to own a gun or not, and above all, to learn that firearms are not a toy. We can start this kind of training from secondary schools where children are already more aware of their environment. Of course, with full parental and police supervision. This could be supported by the many institutions that are already against gun abuse in America, as some of them are already implementing such plan in their states, but the plan will be to implement this on a national scale, where a subject of mental health and gun prevention education is completely obligatory for all the students. In conclusion, I can say that the problem of gun abuse in America is now stronger than ever and it's growing. This has to teach us that excessive of gun use is only detrimental to the general population, and we have to be thankful that the current government is becoming aware of this problem and has now started to do something to put an end to this constant fear in the US of shootings. But we can't leave the government to act on its own. If we want real change much faster, we as citizens can help just as much by teaching at home that the misuse of guns is dangerous, by supporting organizations that want to regulate gun sales, and by being aware ourselves of the danger of using a gun.